All I knew going in is that I wasn't going to take the epidural, and all I knew coming out was that I left without a baby. Hello, welcome back to my channel, M's Brown Eyes. This is Mariah. I have not been on YouTube for 4 years and a lot has happened since then. There is a little series that I know of videos that I want to make for sure, because there's a few things that I wanted to get off my chest and share with the general public. So I'm currently working on those videos right now. Right now is a completely different day than the video that you're about to watch. While I was editing it, there was a few things about the video that I didn't like. So you might see me with straight hair, and then you might see clips of me come in with this fro that I have today, and it's just because I wanted to enter a few things, change a few things, so I apologize in advance. The reason why I wanted to make the video about having an incompetent cervix is because in the last few months I've seen and spoken to and met a lot of women who have gone through the same thing that I went through, and I started to feel bad that I had a platform at the time but did not use it to help educate and to help other women who have gone through the same thing as me to realize that they are not alone in what they've gone through and the feelings that they're going through. Also because a lot of people have also asked too, when people think about what they want to be when they get older, the only thing that I really knew for sure was that I wanted to be a mother. I've seen that people had started being parents when they were 13 years old, 15 years old, and so when I was those ages, I was really pumped and excited to become a mother. I wasn't trying to have children at 13, I'm just saying I heard some stories of people becoming parents that early. I was envious, and that's when I started thinking of this process of wanting to be a mother. Throughout high school, I knew that I was unable to do it, and it was not something that came up. I had a longtime boyfriend whom I was with since I was 15 years old. We always had the pact that we were going to have children once we were done college. So I was in my last year of college. We had rekindled and decided that this was something that we were going to go forth in doing, even though our relationship had taken a pause. In the time frame that I decided to plan to have a child, I ended up getting pregnant extremely quickly. I did not make the decision on my own to have a baby. It was a joint decision. I was having pain in my tubes. I went to the after hours clinic, and there they prescribed me some meds. I don't remember what meds they prescribed me. When I was taking the meds, I was still feeling pain, and so it was my mother who told me, oh, maybe you're pregnant. I kind of laughed it off because I'm like, okay, it can't happen that fast. But I ended up buying a pregnancy test anyways. I stopped the medication as soon as I found out I was pregnant. The medication that I was taking that they originally gave me was not supposed to be taken by pregnant women. So I ended up going back to the hospital because again, I was feeling pain in my tubes. This time I had information that I was pregnant. I think they did a blood test first to confirm that I was pregnant. Maybe a couple days after, I started feeling extreme symptoms. Any strong smells at work, I would instantly throw up. I ended up losing like 30 pounds in the first 3 months. I was having a lot of fainting spells. I was getting overheated, and I was just extremely sick. One of the ultrasounds that I went to, I think I was maybe 19 weeks pregnant by that time. I went with my bladder full and I had my ultrasound done, and then the technician told me to empty out my bladder. Once I emptied out my bladder and I came back, he did the ultrasound with the wand, which was weird to me because the baby was big enough to see at this point. So I had understood what the wand was for, and I was confused as to why he was using it at that time. When he finished my exam, he told me to go straight to the emergency room. He didn't give me anything else. So me and the father went from the doctor's office and we drove to Centenary Hospital. They did exams on me, and then they told me that my cervix was open. Your cervix is always a little open, but when you get pregnant, your cervix is supposed to be closed, and it's not supposed to reopen again until you're actually in labor and you're ready for the baby to come out. A lot of the information they were giving me, I wasn't really taking it in too fast. I didn't really understand what was going on, and there was no one there to really explain to me what everything meant. A whole array of this is what's gonna happen, this is what we're gonna do, not really giving me the option of choosing anything else. They told me that I'm not gonna be able to leave and they're going to sew my cervix shut. So it's like a day surgery. They ended up giving me a spinal tap to freeze me and I would be awake during the surgery. They wheeled me into the operation room. I was not allowed to be with anyone, so just like the epidural, if you make any sudden movements or the needle goes into the wrong spot, you can get paralyzed or you can get injured really badly. I was very scared. I remember I was extremely cold. Every time that the anesthesiologist would go to put the needle in, I would slightly move because I had moved so many times. I had about 20 holes in my back by the time he had actually got into where he was supposed to get into. I was on the operation table like this. The operation table goes down like this. My head is downwards and then my legs are up in the air. And I just remember feeling super drugged, super high, and really drowsy. It seems like it took no time at all. What they do is they go in, open you up a little, and then they put like a tie around your cervix, like a bow tie, then you're done. They kept me overnight to keep an eye on me, for one, for two, and to wait for my body to get back to normal because I was drugged up. They waited for my legs to get their feeling back, and then they told me not to work. That's all they said. They didn't say that I was going to be on bed rest. They just said don't go back to work. So I got a doctor's note saying that I was unable to go back to work, and in the doctor's note it said that I was going to be on bed rest, but my doctor didn't explain to me what that meant. She just told me don't do any lifting, don't do any traveling on the bus. That's about it. I wasn't given any like solid concrete things to do. Because I got that done, I had to go and get an ultrasound again in 2 weeks. They sent me to a different doctor who was apparently like a specialist or whatever, and that doctor told me to go to the hospital. That technician did not tell me any other information, did not tell me what was going on. I was worried. I was like, oh my gosh, maybe the stitch broke or something happened. Like, I don't know what happened. So the father takes me to the same hospital again, Centenary, because that's where our doctor was located. When I get there, the doctor tells me that my water has broken. And I'm like, okay, my water didn't break, because I see in the movies what it looks like when someone's water breaks, and I was not going through that. They said they did a test and they seen that there's amniotic fluid coming out of me. So it wasn't that my water had fully broken. It turns out that I had a leak in my water. Looking back on it now, it could have been punctured at any point of time. When I was looking it up recently, it says that if your cervix is already open, well, Google said that if your cervix is already open, there's a high chance that once you sew it shut, it's dangerous because it could be punctured. Because of the situation that was at hand, they did not put me on any type of monitors or anything like that. I personally could feel my baby moving inside of me, but they told me straight up that there was no way that she was going to survive once she was actually born. I didn't have any options of waiting it out, because I believe the youngest born baby that has survived and been healthy is, I think, 24 weeks. I feel like if I had just gotten the chance to wait for the 2 weeks, or if I had been transferred to a hospital that dealt with it and was more specialized in that situation, that maybe things could have been differently. That's how I felt. I felt like I didn't have any other options. They induced me. I went into labor at around 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. and then I ended up giving birth at 5 a.m. When they induced me, my contractions went from 0 to 100 real quick. There was no slow onset of contractions. They kept trying to push an epidural on me, and because of the fact that I had 20 holes in my back from the previous spinal tap, I politely declined multiple times. They wanted it to be less traumatic for me, knowing that my baby was not going to survive, so they kept trying to push the medication on me, which was something that really irritated me. I felt like they treated me like I was a child, even though I was young. I'm still technically an adult and I'm still able to make my own decisions. That was one thing that really upset me, that I felt like they were trying to force the medication on me and I didn't want it. My sister was there, my mother was there, and the father was there as well while I was giving birth. The whole time I was in labor, I was telling my sister that I feel like I'm gonna explode, like I have to use the washroom. It was the nurse that came in and told me that I wasn't allowed to use the washroom. Like if I have to go number 2, it's probably time for me to push. They called the doctor when it was time for me to push, but I guess the doctor was busy, or like I wasn't a high profile, because they weren't gonna do any interventions to try to save the baby. The baby had been born at 5 and she ended up passing away at like 5:30 in the morning. So I had a natural birth. I went through all the contractions at full speed. The medication I had was laughing gas, or like morphine or something like that, to like allow me to sleep during some of it. All I knew going in is that I wasn't going to take the epidural, and all I knew coming out was that I left without a baby. They allowed me to spend time with the baby, so I had the baby and I was able to hold her for a span of 4 hours. They didn't come and tell me that I needed to give her back, but I realized that her body was turning blue, and so I just thought, okay, I've had enough of time with her, so we ended up giving her back. I got a whole bunch of pictures with her. We were able to name her. Her name was Sierra Honey. I wanted to name her Honey because it reminded me of 2 people. One, the character in the movie Honey, Jessica Alba, and 2, a teacher, Matilda, Mrs. Honey. Those 2 characters really stood out to me because they were selfless, nurturing, loving people, and I knew that I wanted to name my daughter that. So that's where I got the name Honey from. I think I was there for 24 hours. Did a whole bunch of tests on me, and then they wheeled me out without my baby. It was a pretty traumatizing experience to be leaving a maternity ward and seeing people with their babies coming in and going out and realizing that you don't have your baby with you. I ended up having to plan her funeral. Her funeral was 3 weeks after she had passed. She ended up being born on June 7th. It was an extremely hard thing to do, to go home to all the things that you bought for that child. Because I was unable to work and I was trying to apply for unemployment. By the time unemployment came, I had already had my baby and she had already passed away. So the only form of income that I had was Ontario Works. Ontario Works helped pay for the expenses of the funeral. She got cremated and they put her in like a cardboard box for me, and she stayed in that cardboard box until my sister ended up giving me a baby urn a few years later. The point of me doing this video is just to tell my story, because over the years a lot of people have gone through the same thing that I've gone through. The information that I've learned over the time is that I could have chosen to wait it out, and they could have recycled my amniotic fluid, because it's not like my water had ruptured fully. My water was just leaking. So I could have had the option of doing that and pumping her with steroids. There would have been a chance that her lungs wouldn't have developed properly, but that would have been a problem that we would have dealt with after she had been here, as opposed to just giving up completely. But I should have also gone to Mount Sinai so that I could get a second opinion instead of making other people make the decision for me. It's really hard because after the funeral, I feel like I was living on autopilot. A lot of my memories from the next 2 years after, so 2014, 2015, and 2016 going into 16, I feel like there's a lot of blackout periods where I don't actually remember what happened in my life during that time. If you were to ask me what I did after she passed away, I don't really remember. I just remember that my first day back from work, I ended up going to a meeting. So you get a certain amount of time for bereavement. So I went from unemployment to sickness to I didn't get maternity leave at all. I just went on to bereavement. And when I went back to work after bereavement, I went for a meeting that they were having, and there was a sick kids video raising money for charity. And I remember I ran out of the meeting bawling my eyes out. I did a few things to try to get my mind off of things. Like, I went and got my nails done right after I got home. It was extremely hard for me to be home and heal. It's not something that you're able to heal from. It's not something that you're able to forget. The nurse that delivered my baby was a older Jamaican woman. The first response that she gave me after they pronounced my baby dead was, "It's okay, you're young, just try again." Yeah. Yeah. I turned into like this monstrous woman, and I pretty much pushed everyone away. I put a lot of blame on other people as well. Every single year on June 7th, I still cry. Every single year on Mother's Day, I still cry. It's not something that me as a mother was able to move on from. When I was in relationships, people would automatically ask me, "Oh, when are you guys gonna have a baby?" It's a painful thing to ask, because people don't realize that having another child means that I have to be vulnerable and put myself in a situation that I could potentially have the same thing happen to me again. And losing a child is not something that I would wish on my worst enemy. I would have to be able to pull myself to realize that I may have to have another child funeral. I always say that you have to wait the 3 months before you tell people that you're pregnant. I waited the 3 months and then I posted it, and they never tell you that you can lose a child after that. Later on, I found out that it was something called an incompetent cervix, when your cervix is open, and my doctor told me that the following pregnancies afterwards, I would always have to get a stitch and I would always have to be on bed rest. I went to college for child and youth work. I did graduate, but I missed my graduation because of all this stuff going on. And I have never gone into the field. I didn't want to work with children anymore. I didn't want to see children. I was really hurt every time I would see someone with a baby. Anytime someone would tell me about a baby, every time other people would be pregnant or other people would be giving birth or other people would be having babies, a lot of times people would ask me what happened, and I wasn't in the mood or the mind space to be able to tell the story without bawling. As you can see, it's 2020 now. I'm able to get through the entire story without crying. It still does make me sad and it still does hurt my feelings, but I'm able to be emotionally more stable to tell the story. If there's any questions that you guys have or anything that you want me to answer or elaborate more on, you can leave your questions in the comments or inbox me. All my social media is M's Brown Eyes. And I just want to make this video so that other people understand that they're not alone. Like I said, 4 women in just this year, last year alone, have told me that they've gone through the same thing that I've gone through. And it's something that I wish that when I was going through it, I was able to go on YouTube and type it in and have other women talk to me about infant loss. It's still considered a stillborn, and some people were seeing it as a miscarriage. I don't want to downplay on a miscarriage, but Honey had a full face. She had features. She looked exactly like me. She had fingernails, she had fingers, all 10 toes. She was just extremely skinny. So I feel like people don't really take in how traumatizing it is to be holding and witnessing your baby that is not breathing and not alive, who was just alive and breathing and kicking half an hour prior to giving birth. All my contractions were still the same pain. I don't remember if I was 10 centimeters dilated or how dilated I was, but I still had that natural birth. I still had to go through that pain. And it's a lot worse when you know that after all this pain is done, you don't have a purpose to the pain. And thank you for watching my video. I hope that it was not too bad with the editing. I apologize. I took a long time to get to the point where I wanted to post this video, so if you made it to the end, congratulations. It's taken me a really long time to get here. I just think that it's really important that us women begin to speak about the things that we've gone through and how we feel in these situations. A lot of time people expect us to be superwoman, and it's just not the case. Like, we go through a lot of things mentally, physically, emotionally, and it's important for us to stand together and have a support system, which I felt that I did not strongly have at that point when it happened. But if you're going through something like this, or you've gone through something like this in the past and you feel like you have no one to talk to, leave a comment, because other women might be able to understand where you're coming from. I'd love to hear other stories of other women who have gone through it and how they're getting through it. Thank you again for watching. Love you lots. Bye.